That was legit kind of cool, to be honest. I really love the cinematics in this game.
My apologies. Kamore Tea House only accept.
Dude, I was actually struggling. I was like, oh no. It's harder than I thought. Jesus Christ, I can't be retarded. I can't afford that. I almost fucking lost that.
More speed.
I wonder, like, if I go up there, will I go to, like, screwed? Like, will I get reprimanded or that? Oh my god, no. That was nuts. I'm actually having a feeling that her character, like their playable character, is gonna be like Child, where it's like you kind of swap between sword and bow. In this case, you swap with sword and polearm. I'm having a feeling that might be a thing. I'd love that. But we'll see. I actually really hope it's a polearm. I hope she doesn't use a polearm. But then again, I'm having a feeling it's going to be a sword since we have Zhong with the polearm and we have Venti with the bow. I'm having a feeling it's going to be a sword, unfortunately. I'm not a big fan of sword characters. Their attacks come off as weak to me. I don't really like it. Like, it doesn't give me reassurance when I'm in fights. It's like, okay, cool. It's just gonna take an hour to, like, win. Oh. Like, the only reason I was using Vado is just, like, for sake of maybe even, like, eating some damage. Because I was actually fucking freaking out. I was like, hopefully my E ability will suck in a lot of the damage for me. So I kind of, like, calibrate a little more.
I wish it could be like this all the time.
He probably won't play. He's gonna say, dude, I'm gonna fucking play it, watch. And, like, he's never gonna touch it. It won't be out of character for him. Or he's just not really gonna respond at all. Now let's have...
Shirt. No shoes or hat. and screaming so loudly it echoed through the hills.
I wish it
I
could
dropped
be
my dog's leash and walked up to him slowly, gently, and repeatedly telling him that I'm a mom and that he's going to be okay. I wrapped him into my arms and carried him to a neighbor's home to warm him by the fire and called for help. Edit. The boy's parents were visiting friends. The boy got up at night to look for his parents, who'd left him and his sister home while they were out drinking. He got lost in the dark and just kept walking and screaming. Originally thinking I'd get in the crosshairs or witness some bloody domestic fight is what put my mind in the scared shitless headspace. No cell phones, no weapon. He was so lucky to have been found by
Hold
you.
on,
There was a
it's
story
bothering
near me
me.
a
I need
few
to get
winters
this
back where a 2-year-old girl got out at night in their new house. Just started learning how to unlock doors, and she didn't know how to get back inside. A neighbor thought they heard crying and regretted not investigating further. The girl froze to death on the stairs behind their apartment. Yeah. A coworker found a kid sitting in front of a house while delivering. It was freezing, and she was in PJs. Called the police. Turns out the kid locked herself out while parent was out on drugs on the couch. Probably was looking for help, since father wouldn't wake up. They took the kid away. To this day that couple stares daggers at my coworker when he passes by. What was he supposed to do? Let the kid freeze? I'd be staring daggers right back at that posed couple. One time I turned around to see what was behind me just out of intuition, and I saw someone step behind a tree rather quickly and try to hide from me. I stood there for a second to confirm this. Then I speed walked back. Fucking creepy. Speed walked. I would have Usain bolted out of there. Used to live in a neighborhood with a mix of houses, townhouses, and apartments. Pretty little area with large trees and dog parks. An elementary school on one side and walking paths. Very civilized like. Except on the main path, right in the middle of this area, there was a tiny wild bit of unmaintained woods. Sort of an elongated 800 square feet. Some rather thick undergrowth throughout, with the path running perpendicular through it, albeit a bend in the middle. And you could still see the buildings and open path on the other side. My so said it was creepy. But I grew up walking around in actual woods and thought he was being silly. You could literally walk through the thing in less than 2 minutes. Went out one very early morning, using some Pokemon Go event as an excuse or motivation to exercise. Everything still had that heavy blue-grey misty cast to it, and the only noise was bird song. Went through and beyond the woodsy patch. A lady walking her dog went past me going back the way I came. Caught a few Pokemon. Decided it was time for breakfast already and headed back. No one else was on the path ahead of me or behind. Just as I passed the bend in the thickest part of the patch, I heard several twigs snap and their leaves crunch. Half turned my head to catch a glimpse of some woodland creature. Squirrels make more noise in the undergrowth than you think. Only to see a large man in dark non-runner clothes taking small and fast, almost floaty steps towards me from behind some brush onto the path. Didn't even hesitate. I just immediately whipped back around and took off, mostly taking shortcuts through landscaping until I got home. I don't F around with that nonsense. But seriously, who the hell uses postage stamp-sized woods? More like a brush line to hide it. She had to have been in there both. Well, and the other lady had walked through it, while I never heard anything about anyone else encountering this guy. Also never went out there at dawn or dusk.
I condemn you!
I almost
You can't
got
run!
kidnapped near a train station. Some dude drove up to me however, and insisted that I was some missing Canadian child, and that he'd take me. Coincidentally,
Rack and ruin!
a motorcycle cop
I must
happened
leave
to
no
pass
stone
by
unturned.
and immediately pulled over after I waved him down. He approached the guy in the car very aggressively and told him off. The cop didn't arrest the guy or anything. The guy apparently told the cop the same night thought he was a missing child story. But he did walk me over to the train station and stayed with me until the train actually arrived. What a nice dude. Meaning the cop. I'm an overpass security guard. One night I was watching cameras and saw someone underneath a grass tarp where some landscaping was taking place on our property. I was guessing this person had probably tried to stash something before they went into Vetix, which was next door to our property. I get over to the tarp and don't see the guy anywhere. So I start walking over the tarp and lifting it to look for any stashed items. Well, I ended up stepping on the poor homeless guy. Scared the shit out of me. He was cool though, and we fist bumped, and he went on his way. How would you like it if someone stomped on your roof? I worked night shift for 7 years. One night a young, thin blonde woman was walking down the street at 2 a.m. with no pants or underwear on and a button-up shirt open. I tried to ask if she needed help, and she just stared forward. Slowly walking, staring forward. I called the police and they came and stood in front of her, and she slowly walked into the cop's hand and stopped. I didn't stay and went back to work. I still think around her and what the F was going on. I tell myself it was sleepwalking on Ambien or something, and that she wasn't just assaulted and in complete shock. I'll never know, but she was very pretty and seemed well groomed. Was very strange. My old man casually walked across the lobby of a 5-star hotel naked as a jaybird on Ambien. My dad sleepwalked out of the hotel and came to in his tighty whitters, hiding behind the ice machine like a gremlin, scaring the shit out of other guests. Of course he didn't have his room key, so he had to go down to the front desk and basically let them know he had sleepwalked and locked himself out. The clerk was apparently quite nervous when he approached, presumably because at least one guest had already let him know about the delirious ice machine man. This has been one of the very few times that I have been tempted to buy Reddit coins for an award. Amazing story. Dead body on the side of the street with a sign around its neck saying I'm a cell phone thief. Don't be like me. This was maybe 20 years ago in Manila, Philippines. Happened to my grandfather too. He was walking our dog at 5 a.m. Dog went to do his business near a dark, grassy empty lot, and they found a dead body bound up with a sign on him saying he was a thief. This practice is called salvage in the Philippines. Basically an extrajudicial killing done by policemen or vigilantes on criminals and drug addicts, or suspected criminals. It's basically been going on way before Duterte took office. But it's only with him. It was somewhat institutionalized and blatant. Before that, the police didn't brandish it with so much impunity, and didn't dare target teens or grandmothers. Nowadays most of the poor are fair game. If you have money and connections you can still buy your way out of things. And I'm willing to bet good money that, if you have money there, you can also buy to get your way, to make sure someone gets out of your way. One time I was walking around my relatively safe neighborhood with 2 of my friends after midnight. We were probably 16 at the time. This loud red truck speeds by us, which is normal for the road we were on. Then a few minutes later the same red truck drives by the opposite way going much slower. Again just a couple of minutes later he drives by, but this time stops 100 or so feet away from us, and just sits there. Realizing that this is not normal we booked it through the yard to the next street over. For the next 20 or so minutes we see this truck creeping up and down the neighborhood, while we hid behind some bushes, and when we finally thought he was gone, we booked it to my house. He turned the corner onto my road, just as we were about to open my front door. A similar thing has happened to me while walking the dogs at 5:30 a.m. I've had a few cars do this. I now carry mace in the morning and I always turn.
I condemn you!
Walk to walk the busier streets. If I see a suspicious thing,
You can't run! What a nuisance!
you and your friends are safe. Was up on a hill in the countryside at midnight when a man with a rifle came out of nowhere, ran right past me, and wasn't seen again. I went home shortly after that. These old war ghosts always running around. I once led an early morning tour of an American Civil War battlefield, and as I was describing the Union advance through a tree line on the other side of the field, 3 Union soldiers in full regalia stepped out of said tree line. We all held our breath as we saw these ghosts of the past materialize in the
Rack
morning
and ruin.
and march into the field.
You
Then
can't
one of
run!
the soldiers said, after this you want to go to McDonald's. Kind of ruined the illusion. It was reenactors. There's an old ghost story from Chickamauga battlefield near where I grew up. Apparently, a bunch of Union reenactors stumbled upon a camp of Confederate reenactors, and they hung out and talked for a while. The next morning, however, the Confederate camp had vanished, and the park center claimed that no Confederate reenactors had been signed in that night. Found a guy who hanged himself in a park, called 911, and answered some questions.
More speed.
It was a long night. I changed tongue to hand.
I condemn you!
Almost 100% sure I witnessed
Judgment!
it. I was going to get my mail late at night while living in an apartment complex. And on the way back I noticed a woman in her pajamas, surrounded by a few men right by a car.
Eye for an
There
eye!
was an argument, and looked like they forced her in the car and drove off. I found her slipper nearby on the grass. I of course called the police and they came, and I let them know what I saw.
I
But
condemn
I
you.
found out what actually happened. Similar experience here. In high school, late at night walking home from a friend's house maybe a mile away. Halfway car comes cruising super slowly down the street. I hear someone screaming in the car. I was sure they were calling for help. I start following the car, and as I get on the phone with the cops the car starts pumping the gas. So I just run after them and try to follow them. But I lost them pretty quickly. Never learned what really happened. I hate the lack of resolution, like I wanna know if this person ended up okay or not. I still think about it and worry about what happened. I just always remember finding that slipper and chills going down my spine. What I thought was a body in the woods. And after a bit of back and forth on the phone with the police I returned with a few helpful coppers to find a slightly miffed drunk person who'd had an argument with his missus. What was there to go back and forth about? Body in the woods isn't emergency enough. Are you sure that's not just a drunk person who'd had an argument with his missus? Common mistake. Happens all the time. I once saw tiny hands reaching out of a sewer grate. Took me a minute before I realized it was a raccoon. Must be because of the thumbs. They have thumbs. They all have thumbs down here, Georgie. I can't help but to read this in Estelle Costin's voice. And I know it's from it. Living in a rural village, I was taking a late night walk with my GF. When suddenly we hear aloud what we thought was a human scream. Turned out it was a sheep. Jump scared us hard though. Oh man. When my wife and I were stoners we took our bong out back and we turned the lights off. And when I was mid-hit I hear a god-awful scream followed by the ground pounding of something large running to use from the woods. My wife ran in and slammed the door behind her and I almost told her to get in. Found out a few months later it was a deer screaming and it jumped over the broken fence. I was super stoned and that was the most awful experience I've ever had because I couldn't move fast enough. Your wife really said better in than me. A bear right up the street, or maybe an empty baby carriage on the side of the road. The baby carriage thing is just making me think of that part in Bioshock. Wasn't there the wrench
More
or the
speed.
revolver in the stroller? I forget. Pretty sure it was a gun. I saw a tarantula use a crosswalk, as if it was a law-abiding pedestrian. The dude was just trying to be a good example for the other spiders. Friendly neighborhood spider. Top of the morning to you, sir. An old man who walked very aggressively, like Jason from Friday the 13th, but sped up. I was ready to run, but I walked past him and nothing happened. Put me on my toes, but holy shit, change your walking form, man. He's
Rack
just
and
so
ruin.
different. Probably needed to be. I walk like a clay. Oh, busting.
Eyes on
Stick
me!
this grip to the face.
Freeze to the core! I condemn you!
You know a thing or two.
Well, that was an adventure.
Time to clean up.
Then the door appeared.
How's
Put
this?
my teeth back in.
Finally,
Continued on the way to the bingo hall. Was out
How's
for a
this?
little
Move.
away. Always enjoy it because it's peaceful. Smells great. Quiet and never see anyone.
Someone needs assistance.
Saw a big pile of garbage under a tarp at the end of the cul-de-sac with trail ends.
You can't run!
Got a creepy chill like that could be a dead body or something. I just got a weird feeling. Snapped me out of my calm walk. Picked up the pace. About 500 yards away, parked car with a guy sitting there. In the dark. In the rain. Like 11 Mish car long. Just sitting
Back
there.
off!
Got super creeped out.
Rack and ruin!
And changed the route to the main road and hurried home. Turns out it was a dead body someone had dumped under that tarp. Was under there for 4 days before someone investigated it. The guy in the car turned out to be just a random dude. Guy lives there and totally unrelated to the body. Still. Took a few months off from my late night. Walks alone in the woods. It's weird how your mind did that. I've had a similar experience.
I'm alright, since I'm a little more aware of the Shogun's capabilities in combat, I'm a little afraid of fighting not gonna lie, if she cancels my abilities, I realize she fucking just turns that shit off, and it's gonna be very tough. I'm gonna have to be very smart with how I play. Like, I think I need to have something, like, at least two that just fucking bowls prepared. And I need to be very careful with how I get damage. I know how her like, attack patterns are generally, so I should be fine on that front. So, just I can't be too reckless next time. Like, I did alright, but I could be better.
Was at work on this dirt trail, and to the left of the fence I had to unlock was something laying. My first thought was that it would be crazy if it was a dead body, but I just assumed it was trash. Couple days later I found out that it was a dead body. Some guy went up there to kill himself. I truly believe that my mind knew it was a dead body, but that it wanted me to ignore it to maybe protect me from seeing something like that. The dude was following me around for a solid 10 minutes in a car. When I confronted the guy, he was just a Uber person who was lost. Or so he said. A man on a bike passed me, and he wore a jacket, shoes, and a hat, but no pants or underwear. At first I couldn't believe that I just saw his bare ass. They saw 2 moons that night, and a black hole. A gigantic mother moose and her baby about 30 yards away. Glad you made it out of that situation alive. Iguana fell out of a tree on an unseasonably cool night. Many years ago my boyfriend and I decided to take a late night walk around his generally safe neighborhood. We got a few steps past the driveway when a shirtless guy came running over with a hammer in one hand and a machete in the other. My boyfriend stayed super calm and asked the man what was going on. Apparently, some man had just broken into his apartment and tried to kidnap his young daughter, so he was chasing him down to either shatter his fingers with the hammer or chop off his hands entirely with the machete. And he thought my boyfriend was possibly this man. My boyfriend gave me his car keys and told me to take myself home. We lived apart at the time, so I went and got his car, and by the time I was backing out of the driveway, the man was screaming at my boyfriend, who was just standing there calmly with his hands in the air. I drove a block away, so the man wouldn't see me, rolled the windows down to try to hear what was happening, and called the cops. The machete man ended up running off, and I don't know if they ever got him. My boyfriend was fine though, thank God. Seeing is scary, but hearing and not seeing is fucking terrifying. You bet it is. A good example I can bring to the table is the sound of a rabbit screaming, while you hear the low growling of either a raccoon or a cougar trying to silence it. I hope it wasn't the latter, because this happened right near my backyard. I heard the same, but it was an owl shredding the rabbit. I did not expect it to be such a big bird. It was like a fire hydrant covered with feathers sitting there munching on Thumper. Owls are terribly huge, I agree. They look even more scary in the dark. It's speculated that some of the Mothman sightings were people who got jump-scared by an owl. A couple years ago, I was at the start of a typical weekday night stroll. I was living in an apartment complex in Florida at the time, so it was the only opportune time to do so, without being completely drenched. The exact moment I was crossing the sidewalk adjacent to the entrance of said complex, I witnessed a middle-aged dude punch his wife/significant other in her face, in full view of me, and another passerby. The passerby called the cops. The dude was arrested. It wasn't a scary situation to my own well-being, but I did find the situation chilling for one. How nonchalant the guy was in assaulting his wife/so in public, and 2. How both the abuser/so were pleading for the cops not to be called. It was domestic abuse so normalized. It happened in full public, without any second thought/rationale. That's crazy. When I lived in Florida, my husband and I were taking a walk at night. We saw a husband straight choke his partner and throw her phone across the parking lot of our complex. The wife hollered that she wouldn't be back, but we would hear them say that kind of stuff all the time. Anyway, we called the cops. The cops said she didn't want to press charges, so they couldn't do anything. Another person walking at night, especially if it's on an uncommon pathway. A guy got onto an empty walking trail a couple 100 feet ahead of me last night and kept looking back and stopping so that I'd eventually catch up and he could get behind me. That's a great way to ruin someone's night walk. For me, they were probably just as terrified. Are you going to kill me? No. I'm terrified. Are you going to kill me? No. You scare the shit out of me. Better kill them, just to make sure they don't get you first. You know they'll be thinking the same thing, so it's either you or them. Some guy talking to himself and flogging his back with something whip-like. Clearly he had mental issues, but I didn't find him very threatening. There was one night where a car stopped up the road. A girl got out, yelled for help, then got back in, and they drove off. I have no idea if it was serious or not, considering she got right back in the car.
Hey, what's up? It's Tank Top Charlie here again, climbing down your chimney to take a shit in your living room. I haven't showered since yesterday, so I'm still wearing the tank top from my pole dancing course that I took. And I just got really excited. I was actually about to take a shower before making this video, but I read something that just got me giddy, and I wanted to share it with all of you. It's a topic that's near and dear to my boners. I'm talking about gender reveal party disasters. I've covered a lot of these over the last year, and you may remember in 2020 there was the massive El Dorado wildfire, which actually killed a firefighter, which was started by a couple doing a gender reveal party where the pyrotechnics display went wrong and just fucking lit the entire area on fire, scorched it, brought hell on earth like Doom. And it was all because they wanted to show the world that they were having a boy. They wanted to do it like a WWE introduction, fucking firing off all kinds of shit, and they absolutely incinerated a good, what was it, 22,000 acres or something like that. Today, the follow-up to that story, we're in the goddamn season 2 of that anime. The couple has been found. They are on trial now, facing up to 20 years in jail. And I couldn't be happier. This couple is not only having a baby, they're having a fucking world record for criminal charges. They're catching them all like Pokemon. They're facing 30 criminal charges, including involuntary manslaughter for the death of that firefighter who died battling it. And they're also facing a multitude of other ones. The jury was presented with 434 pieces of evidence. 434 exhibits. That's like as much as the fucking Smithsonian Museum. They have as many exhibits as, like, One Piece does episodes in a single season. It's crazy. And it's great. I am super excited. The next stage of the trial will begin in September. For now, though, they've been released under their own recognizance until WrestleMania picks up again in September, the SmackDown in court. I'm not an expert in law, as you might imagine. I fucking throw around rubber vaginas, play with fleshlights, and turn 3-foot Moby huge dildos into rideable go-karts. So I'm not exactly what you'd consider an ace attorney, but I can pretend to be, because I looked it up on Google. So them being released under their own recognizance means that right now, they're fucking free. They're out there roaming the streets. They could be anywhere. They could be anybody. They could have gotten plastic surgery or like a Mission Impossible mask and assumed a new identity. They could be anywhere, at any time. They could even be you, or your neighbor, maybe even your parents. Hope not, but you never know. Also, real quick, they pled not guilty. So, I guess we'll see how this one plays out.
Beg for mercy.
We could all be wrong, and maybe the fire was make-believe, or they've been framed for it. Maybe there's some kind of underground syndicate that goes around throwing gender reveal parties and framing innocent couples for it. I'm not really sure. Obviously, I don't think the not guilty verdict is even a possibility here. That's going to be one of the... I don't understand law super well, but most people, I would imagine, plead not guilty and then try and do like some kind of deal or something. I'm not sure. But I just really like the idea that this couple has no fucking idea what anyone's talking about. They're just clueless, just stomping their feet on the ground. What incarnation? Gender reveal party? We're not even having a baby. What are you all going on about? We would never take a flamethrower to a California forest to reveal our baby's gender. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't sound like us. No, not guilty, obviously. And who's to say they won't double down and try and Jimmy Neutron together another fucking awful smoke device for a gender reveal party and light another part of California on fire? You know, I think this is dangerous. I don't think they should be out there. I think the 20-year sentence should just start now. With that much overwhelming evidence, I think it's really just a matter of what they decide to stick on them. Fucking pin the tail on these two dumb donkeys. Like, I really think, you know, maybe it's just not the best idea, because right now they're hungry. They didn't get to finish their gender reveal party. The smoke never even went off. They didn't get to show their relatives the gender of the baby they're having. So that mission is still incomplete, and they're probably thirsting for it. Yeah, they've already had the baby now since it's been a year, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't count, because there wasn't colored smoke to indicate the gender of that baby. So they might just go out there in Dexter's lab another device that doesn't work and just blows up California, you know? I just think it's risky. I really do. I know there's some people, and this is surprising, that thought that this was too harsh because the defense is that they were just stupid and they didn't mean to, it was an accident. I don't think that's a defense at all. I don't think that justifies anything. If you're dangerously stupid like these people are, you shouldn't have that freedom to go out there and do this shit. 100%. You are stupid to an actual villain-like level. You are so dumb that you become a fucking threat. So I really think 20 years sounds about par for the course here. Yeah, I don't think they set out there to burn down California, but they're so fucking dumb that it happened anyway. Which means they are a danger to themselves and everyone around them. And I think that absolutely warrants a 20-year sentence at least. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because this is really the first major one where I've seen that they're facing some real huge repercussions for this shit. Gender reveal parties, I've said, are like modern terrorism, and now we're finally seeing someone getting punished for this. I really hope this doesn't have an unsatisfying conclusion where they only get like 2 years in jail because it was an accident, and just have like this really fucking wet part of an ending like half of the anime that comes out these days. I'm hoping this really sticks the landing and they get that full 20 years. That would be wonderful to see. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.
Eye for an eye. You can't run.
Beyond the veil lies the Shadowlands.
Rack and ruin.
Every soul has its place. World of Warcraft Shadowlands available now.
I condemn you. Vengeance will be mine. Judgment.
Unexplained goblin sightings from around the world. Now we're getting into some videos that actually have potential, I think. What do we got? Let's see if I can solve this. Those aren't goblins. None of these are goblins. Oh god, we're going in! Space goblins! Ah! Oh god. That's the goblins' territory.
Rack and ruin. Yeah. Punishment.
How small does he think a goblin is?
Eye for an eye.
Didn't we see this video for gnomes? Wasn't this confirmed to be a gnome sighting, not a goblin? Did this guy do any research?
Rack and
That's
ruin.
clearly a gnome. It's like one of those Rice Krispie guys. God damn, amateur. He didn't do any amount of research. Fucking has a montage of everything but goblins in the beginning. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This guy does not know goblins. Not true. Experts have confirmed that it's a gnome. No, that doesn't make any sense. Why would it be a rodent? It's clearly a goblin.
More speed.
Goblins do hate soccer. He's not gonna like this. What? As goblins are known to do. Goblins are very well known to love robes and hoodies. This looks more like a Jawa from Star Wars. I think we can't rule out that possibility. It could even be Georgie from It. Like maybe he's going to try and catch his boat. The quality is too low to know for sure, but there is still that possibility it's a goblin. I can't see their face.
They don't quite catch up or see the creature ever again, but the boys do leave back.
Goblins are not an evil gnome. They're very different.
A person wearing a robe, and if it was in fact a person, why was it walking the way that it was? Why did it not?
It's running. It's called running.
Out in the middle of the night, walking alone in a dangerous place.
I can't tell if this guy, like the guy who made the video, is serious or not, or if he's just playing into like children. Like, this could very well just be my Final Fantasy XIV character for all we know. But, like, why does he keep saying, like, he's walking weird, when he's clearly running? Why didn't he say anything? What the fuck is he gonna say? I don't go around talking to kids playing soccer at 4 AM? Like, I can't tell if the guy's just going along with it to appeal to, like, actual babies or not. Or if he really does believe these things. I love these videos, though, regardless. I like to believe that the guy behind the channel is truly frightened by the things that he finds, and he posts them in earnest. That's what I choose to believe. That's a gnome!
More speed.
Or the Pope. Like, the Pope got hit with a shrink ray. He's got the Pope hat.
The object seems to grow legs and quickly walks out of the frame.
Are we sure it's not a dildo?
Did a law enforcement or an object come to life? Was a goblin hiding there the whole time watching the kids play? Or is there
It's probably a goblin. That's probably a goblin. Goblins! They're having a marathon! Track and field goblins. No. It's clearly goblins that were running away from like a death beam. And then two of them got vaporized. This is another gnome! This channel sucks. What the fuck? They just take the gnome videos and then call it a goblin. We've seen like half of these when we were researching real gnomes. Obviously, as one does. Because I've become a leading expert on identifying gnomes and pixies. This is not a goblin.
I've gotta think of a way to save there.
And he seems to have copied her clothing. Ah, so it's like a chameleon. He can mimic the colors around him. What if it's her from a different dimension? And the multiverse collapsed on top of each other because they have the same hair, same top, same jeans. And in this dimension that we collided with momentarily, we all happen to be like 1 foot tall. Oh my fucking god.
This small creature appears to be running for cover. The small creature runs behind what appears to be a stand.
It's Dobby, the house elf! Christ!
Already waited this. I wish it could be like this all the time.
But we can definitely tell you that it didn't seem human.
It's definitely a goblin. I mean, obviously. Well, who would even bother making this video? Is there like a community of people who just make fake goblin videos, I guess? Like, why even make this? Doesn't make any fucking sense. It looks like they just rotoscoped some, like, guy who was streaking at a soccer game. And then, like, put it here. Like, superimposed it here. It's DB Cooper. That's true, it could be. Pretty wild stuff. I mean, I'm convinced. I was a little skeptical coming into this. It's like, yeah, gnomes are real. We all know that. Pixies too. But like goblins, that's a little far-fetched. But now, after seeing some of this hard proof, like what the fuck is this? You know, you can't explain that.
The sideways moving goblin.
These titles are amazing.
Or a hallway video. The only thing we see in the image is some weird limping creature that seems to be holding something in its right or left hand. We can't tell if the back or front is turned towards.
Oh, the goblins doing the old karaoke.
It almost moves as if it's a doll.
The footwork drill from football.
Ones outside, but then we see this shadowy-like figure appear and start moving.
What the?
Actually meet. Never been happier before. That is the best pickup line I've heard in a long time. Probably ever. I asked him out. On the first date, I walked into his room naked after going to the restroom. He took the hint and we're currently engaged. The naked man works about a third of the time, but the naked woman always works. He stood by my desk every morning looking sad and desperately trying to come up with small talk that wasn't about bagels. Then he checked what I was doing every day as he headed out to lunch. It was obvious he was trying to do the impossible. Talk to the human female. I eventually put him out of his misery and gave him my number and told him to take me to lunch when I got back from a trip. I'm the guy, but my best friend invited me to a concert and told me last minute he's bringing this chick he's into and not to blow it for him. So I go into wingman mode and just am acting like myself because I don't have to impress her, and made some small talk here and there. Apparently she didn't know he was into her and asked him for my number since she thought I was cute. She was supposed to move across the country in a week, so it was supposed to be a fun fling. But she came back 2 weeks later because she hated it and we've been together 8 years. Best friend was cool about it and we all hang out together when we can. Mr. Steely Joel over here. We met at an engineering summer camp. They jammed us all into a dorm lobby for orientation. I was one of the last to enter the room and sat down on the only available couch space, which was next to him. He was struck with love at first sight. We exchanged a few brief sentences and then they turned on a movie and I fell asleep on his shoulder. I've fallen asleep on other random people's shoulders at other times in my life. I just fall asleep easy. I woke up deeply embarrassed and scurried off to my room. The next day, we naturally gravitated toward each other because we didn't know anybody else, and we hit it off from there. Being at camp made us both available for dating in a way that we wouldn't have been otherwise. The camp structure encouraged forced socialization and he was separated from his computer, and I was separated from most of my pastimes as well. If we'd gone to high school together, I don't think we would have started dating. Anyway, now we're coming up on our 11th wedding anniversary. We've worked out a pretty good system for mostly letting him be his deeply introverted self without making me feel too isolated. I can just imagine him sitting there awkwardly with a steaming head with you asleep on his shoulder. We met on Tinder and he asked me about breakfast food. I was suspicious because I thought it was going to be some gross pickup line, but no, he's just really into breakfast food. 3 years together this summer, living together for 2. I met my, now, husband at a mutual friend's housewarming party one night. I had decided to sneak away from the place to go home out of sheer boredom, so I told the hosts that I was going to Subway to grab food or they'd have tried to make me stay.
To the core.
Keep in mind this was at about 10:30 PM in a not so great area of town while I walked down the dark street to get to my bus stop.
You can't run.
Now, there was a quiet guy from the party,
Eye
the
for an
host
eye.
guy's best friend. He decided while quite drunk that it would be a fantastic idea to run after me for a few blocks at full speed to walk me safely to Subway because he was hungry too. So here I am being chased by some rando drunk guy from the party. I'm getting ready to punch him if I have to, when he catches up and asks to tag along, lol. We got to Subway, got food, and he walked me back to the party I wanted to leave, where we chilled in the kitchen for hours talking video games, anime and other crap. We traded emails because he wanted to give me some anime downloads and we could discuss series further. I still tell him that he's dang lucky I managed to decipher his terrible writing on that paper. After that he would bus all the way from across the city just to pick me up from work almost daily and walk me home for 10 minutes. We were watching anime heck when he first kissed me like a sudden spaz and asked, "Are you happy now?" Come to think of it, he's still never actually asked me out. We don't even know what would be considered our first date really. It's nearly been 11 years now though. Plus a kid. I wouldn't change one awkward thing even if he did freak the crap out of me at first. We're also both still terrible in social situations, but with each other our awkwardness sort of cancels each other out. Sometimes. While we were leaving a class, I complimented her on a dress she had worn the previous day. I still cringe. We aspire to be as elite as you are. I'll answer for my little sister's husband. I come from one of the loudest, in-your-face families you will find. My little sister married a guy who to my knowledge doesn't talk. I'm exaggerating, but at every family gathering he is armed with a book, and he knows how to use it. How they met is my sister's car got infested with bees. She went to ask a guy friend for help but he was like, "No thanks." Then book guy put down his book and said, "I will help you." She didn't even know his name. At their wedding, book guy's father gave a toast. We never thought he would get married. Truly never ever. I'm not sure this is real actually. Your mother and I never thought you would have a wife. This went on for an uncomfortable amount of time. My sister is really beautiful and really into video games, and D&D, and comic books. Nice pull, book guy. Risked bee stings for love. I am the awkward introverted boyfriend. Since I considered her 100% to be out of my league, I also had no hopes illusions about ever dating her. Consequence, I wasn't as awkward with her as I usually am with women, and she ended up asking me out. It's going strong for nearly 3 years now. 10/10 would date again. My girlfriend approached me at a barbecue, where I knew basically no one, and talked to me for about 2 hours. The next day she found me on Facebook and asked me on a date. 2 dates later she kissed me and invited me back to her place. I suspect she'll propose to me at some point. As a guy, this is the preferable way to start a relationship. Some mutual friends of ours came up with some plan for all of us to hang out, then they would all conveniently have to dip at the same time, leaving just us two. Was a little nerve-wracking at first, but we had a good time. Then he asked me out at the end of the night. I was a fishnet wearing, metal loving punker. He was in a band, a fun horror punk band that wrote songs about bad B horror flicks. He was the keyboardist and was so very painfully awkward, out of place, and had very little stage presence other than a fake bullet hole to the head and a white lab coat covered in fake blood and a very out of place Sum 41 shirt. I couldn't tell if it was ironic or not. LOL. It wasn't. LOL. I guess that left an impression on me. The show was a blast though, and I ended up buying a band tee that night. Fast forward 4 whole years and I came across his profile on a dating site. He stated right in his profile the band's name and I instantly remembered him. Here was this tie wearing corporate IT guy. But I remembered this nerd keyboard player and thought, I have to let him know how much fun I had that night. It was a slow burn. It took us 6 months to meet as we both had very busy lives. Fast forward 4 more years and we are now married and expecting our firstborn next month. Ladies, go for the nerdy guy. He's the sweetest, kindest, smartest man I've ever known, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. That's a pretty cool story, and congrats about your baby as well. BF here. Tried to act casual over Facebook with a message suggesting to get some coffee someday. When I realized that didn't work at all, I built up some courage and asked directly in person with a shaky voice for getting some lunch together someday soon. Result: 5 happy years and counting. That's a long lunch. I met my boyfriend through a friend. A bunch of us were hanging out at an arcade-themed bar and she brought a few friends along, including my now boyfriend. I got tipsy pretty fast. I rarely drink so it doesn't take much, and started spouting comments like, how tall are you? 5'8", that's the perfect height for me. And where do you work? Midtown. Oh man. We'll clearly have to hang out again since we'll obviously run into each other again. It was awkward and embarrassing and I never do this. Then, we go to a karaoke bar and he and I do a bunch of fun duets together. When it's someone else's turn to go, we are hanging out on the karaoke couch and kinda leaning into each other, almost cuddling. He finally asked me out at the end of the night, but said he would have been too much of a wuss if I hadn't give him all of those hints. Even by karaoke, he still had to ask my friend. While I was in the bathroom, do you think Jetta 998 would go out with me? My friend pretty much slapped him upside the head, haha. He asked me would there ever be a chance we could be more than friends. I told him I had to think about it, but 10 years later and we're still together and married. Do you still tell him that you are still thinking about it? I'll answer for my girl. I'm the kind of guy who is confident in every aspect of my life, except for talking to girls I want to be with. Luckily for me, I'm okay looking, so Tinder always worked and I could at least pretend to be confident there. After a couple of crappy Tinder dates and a lot of matching, I matched with someone who said sick of people not being able to pronounce my name. She was Irish, and so I proclaimed that I could pronounce her name. She retorted, "You're Irish. I'd be disappointed if you couldn't." We chat, realize we're a lot alike. Both just moved to the UK. Both don't know anyone here. So we meet up and I pronounce her name wrong. There's two ways. She was not impressed. Coming close to my second year with her now. Living together 8 months. Head over heels for her and she's the same for me. 10/10 would pronounce her name wrong again. TLDR. A fadder almost cost me a date with my soulmate. The TLDR is something I'd buy a crappy women's gossip magazine to read the full of. Awkward boyfriend here. I was best friends with her for 2.5 years. I was undoubtedly in love with her, and I couldn't really go not admitting it anymore. I was telling my other friend I need to tell her and my friend just kept saying tell her and bugging me, so I just turned to her and said, "Hey man, I think I'm in love with you." And she said, "Oh, I love you too." And I said, "No, like for real, like non-friends and all that." And she said, "Yeah, I know, I'm not stupid, I love you too." It's been a year and a half since and we're going very strong. He didn't really have to. We were friends at the start. He brought me gummy worms because his own girlfriend hated them. It was love at first sight. Love over gummies. Reminds me of that long man ad that was on the front page just a few days ago. I just saw on her profile that she played tennis. Hi, do you like tennis?
I condemn you.
Thank God I look up or we never would have met. First date was also awful. Good thing she fell in love with my really crappy dad. I am the introvert here, so let me tell you how I was fortunate enough to land my partner, and how I am the freaking worst and luckiest person around. So, second year uni, I was recovering from an absolutely do-nothing relationship that I latched onto like a freaking limpet because I was suffering from moderate depression and had been for a few years. So, 6 months after I had split up from my previous girlfriend, I was on a night out at the local rock bar with my housemates and I ended up having another episode. Was pretty drunk and started texting my ex. Being a general sap and a drain on everyone's emotions. I was for that brief period of time one of the most pathetic cretins on the face of this planet. So my now partner spots me drinking myself into a stupor and sending damaging texts and sits down next to me, whips the phone out of my hands and tells me to explain everything. I kept trying to usher her onto more fun things like the pool table and the dance floor hole. I sat in the corner and she was having none of it. Ultimately the damage control sort of works and I spend the rest of the night under supervision. From there she takes me home, tells me to stop sending dumb texts and then goes home herself. Next day she starts texting me to check in if we don't see each other. Every day she was making sure I was okay. And for the next 2 months that was it. She arranged some movie nights at each other's just to keep each other company and talk about stuff. We were friends. And it just developed from there really. And another night of heavy drinking allowed me to have the courage to actually see where my priorities should lie. And ultimately have the courage to do something about it. I am super fortunate to have her in my life. And although I feel I've had a negative impact on hers which I'm super guilty about, she stuck around me for 7 years. I have done her so much wrong in that time too, and yet she still welcomes me home with a smile. She's my only friend, and it'd never have been any other way. I asked him out, then I paid for the first date. I don't have time for traditional gender roles.
Leave it all to me.
We had been classmates in college for like a year, and I never saw him speaking to anyone. He told me he saw me reading manga on my phone and that gave him courage to talk to me. He just asked which one I was reading. We ended up having a lot in common and went to the movies to watch Mad Max Fury Road like a month later. Almost 3 years now. I'm the introverted boyfriend. I bribed her with cold Jack in the Box tacos via text. She came over, somehow talked until morning, featuring for me, and now it's been 3 years and I'm about to wife the frick out of her. Wife the frick out of her. That's cute as crap. Freshman year of high school. We were both in the school musical and got paired as a couple in one scene. I am terribly awkward and completely oblivious to anything. He asks for a good luck kiss on opening night. I kiss him on the cheek. 2 years later, we were both in the full play. We were cast as the mother and father of the lead character. After looking at the cast list the first time, he commented, "Looks like we are a couple again." A few weeks later, he put his arm around me during rehearsal. We had gotten friendly, but not much more. A few weeks after that, at the marching band banquet, he wanted to sit with me. I still didn't get the hint. By the end of the night, we had a very short conversation in which we mutually agreed to start dating. Once the drama teacher learned that we were a couple, she told us that we were not allowed to break up. She meant not to break up during the play so we wouldn't cause unnecessary drama. We took it at her word. It's been over 15 years since that fall and we are still together.
You can't run.
LOL, he slid me a note on his phone in the notepad app. It said something like, "You wanna go eat some food with me after this?" It was right in the middle of a math class lecture, and the professor was extremely controlling about having your phones out. This was to the point of yelling at you in front of the class or even kicking you out, which wasted so much time and money. Anyways, she obviously noticed and freaked out, but I was too flattered to care. We kept smiling at each other the whole time she lectured us for having our phones out, and we eventually teamed up the rest of the semester as study buddies. He's been my best friend for like 2 years and boyfriend for 1. My hubs and I have been together 15 years. We met in 11th grade in the audience of a play the drama club put on. I thought he was talking in the audience, so I threatened to rip him open from Pistol to Grundle, like a totally reasonable person. I completely forgot about that. A few months later, some Boosters Club had a Valentine's Day fundraiser thing that matched people based on a short personality quiz. We matched, and he approached me with that news. I thought it was adorable that he was nervous and shy, not realizing it's because of the threat from before. Turns out he likes strong, hyper-aggressive women. What it came down to for him wasn't about the kind of approach. It was just taking the plunge and striking up a conversation. He's obsessively nerdy, into the video games, D&D, comic books, etc crap, and I was kind of a party girl, so we were seemingly a mismatch, yet here we are. I will answer this for my missus as well. Awkward husband here. I told her the story of when a wasp stung me on my prominent member. I have no idea what it's like to have a filter, as I have absolutely no shame. Also because I really don't care what people think about me. I am awkwardly comfortable telling people anything. I told her the story of when a wasp stung me on my prominent member. You can't just say you got your dong stung by a wasp and not tell us the story. I'm the introvert male. I think when I got to be about 22 and still have never had a serious relationship, my parents began to worry about me. One day my dad said there was a nice young girl, 19 at the time, working at his office, and would I be interested in meeting her? At first I said no, thanks, but later that week I went to church, and during the sermon, the speaker looked out over the congregation right into my eyes and said, "God has something special for you. Give him a chance to give it to you." I felt like that was almost an instruction to go ahead and meet this girl. So I called her and we clicked. We've been married over 40 years now. I'm pretty sure that without this kind of prompting I would not have been married. Your dad paid off the speaker to get you a wife ordained by God. That's some next level wingmaning. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.
I condemn you!
My lucky day.
Bye for now.
Vengeance will be mine. Eye for an eye. Back off!
Feel my blade.
You can't run.
Introvert. How did you meet your girlfriend?
The fairy.
It's actually a very easy answer.
I condemn you.
I didn't. We worked together. I wasn't really interested at first. She seemed a bit standoffish. But one day she stayed after work and hung out
Rack
talking.
and ruin.
I invited her to a 4th of July cookout at a friend's house the next day.
My blade.
As my crush couldn't make it,
To
she
the
said
fairy.
yes and was very touchy-feely with me. I was oblivious still. One of my friends at the cookout suggested a few of us go see a movie the next day and she said yes. When we went, she sat next to me and kinda snuggled up close. Still oblivious. After the movie, she hung out with me at my apartment. Sat on my lap with her honey my chest. And watched Red vs. Blue with me. She was cold and asked me to hold her. She put my hand on her ass. And I was still oblivious. It wasn't until she left at 2 AM that I realized what if she's into me? I told a close girlfriend of mine. And she almost hit me for not asking her out. So I called her up and she said yes. We've been together 7 years now. I was both an introvert and an idiot. When guys say we don't catch signals, we really don't. Met someone that realized I was too shy to make a move and aggressively flirted with me and hinted all the time. All of my girlfriends have been the aggressor in starting the relationships. And not with subtle hints either. Basically they have to knock on my skull and say hey we're gonna date now. My girlfriend is an extrovert.